I'm Nikki and welcome to the Preppy Possum. Today I'm going to lead you step by step through a painting. Today we're going to paint the Pisgah covered bridge, so a local landmark. Let's go ahead and start by grabbing like a number 8 and dry it off on the paper towel. And let's start with like a milk chocolate brown. It's like a really dark brown. And I'm just gonna skip up like 5 or 6 inches from that bottom right hand corner of my canvas, and I'm gonna throw a little line that goes over to the left. So I'm gonna skip up with that dark brown, 5 or 6 inches, and I'm gonna throw a little line that goes over to the left. I'm just gonna stop short of the left hand side by at least 3 or 4, just to give me a little bit of room for my roof over here on the back side. So, and then once we have that, because that's going to be kind of the bottom of our bridge, right up from that where we ended over here on the left, let's throw a little line that goes straight up for just like 3 or 4 inches. And then I'm going to skip up just a little bit over here on the right. Skip up just like, inch and a half. That's going to be like our little rock walkway kind of thing. And we're just going to throw that in just like 3 or 4 inches. And then right off the edge of that, we're going to throw a little diagonal line. So you want it to kind of lean just a little bit towards the top right. Let me come in just a little bit more. So it just kind of barely leans. And then once you have that, I'm just going to connect that little line with our one on the left. So I'm just going to go right like that and connect them. And then once you have that, I'm going to skip over just a smidge to the right. So just like a couple inches. And throw you a little line that kind of has that same angle, that same lean, kind of parallels it for just a few inches. And then right off of that, I'm going to throw a little line that just hangs out to the right like an inch. And then I'm going to throw a little diagonal, so it's going to lean up. Sorry, I'm just kind of thickening all these lines. It's going to lean up towards the top. So it kind of leans to the left just a little. And then I'm going to throw a little line off the back side over here at the left. Throw a little line, kind of continue your roof line. For a couple inches. And then go ahead and throw a little diagonal like you're leaning towards the top center right off of that for just like 2 inches. Because of perspective, it's going to be smaller back here at the back. And so once you have that, let's go ahead and throw us a little line just right here from the top of our roof all the way to the back side. All right, and then over here, we're going to throw a little line to connect our little roof right there. And then over here where we had that little part that juts out, we're just going to throw a straight line right there. All right, so we have the basics of our bridge. It's going to get better, hopefully. And then once you have that, let's go ahead and skip down kind of right here from where the walkway touches, and we're going to throw like a little line that barely leans down. And then we'll skip in from the edge of our bridge just like an inch and a half or 2, and let's throw a bumpy little line down, at least for like 3 inches or so. And then we'll kind of bump it over to the right for a few inches, and then we'll just do a little line that parallels that other one, so it goes right off the bottom right. These are gonna be our little pillars. And then we're gonna do the same thing over here on the back side of the bridge. Just skip all the way to that back left corner. And we're gonna do a bumpy little line. It can kind of lean towards the bottom left just a little bit. And then once you have that, we'll go ahead and skip over at least 3 inches or so and throw you a bumpy little line that leans towards that bottom center. So it's gonna get wider as the little support comes out. And we're doing it bumpy because these are all like old rock supports. So, and then we'll skip over just a smidge and throw you a little diagonal that's gonna lean towards the left again. So this is gonna be our middle little column. And then we'll skip over from that one, you know, another good 3-4 inches because you want this one somewhat in the center. And throw you another bumpy little line. You want this one to lean towards that bottom right. All right, so we have like 1, 2, and then 3. So our little supports. So let's go ahead and grab some of that. Keep the dark brown on your brush, but grab some of that like dark gray color with it. And we'll just start by throwing us a layer all through the side of our bridge. Because we're gonna come back and streak with it, but we just want a good, you know, little layer. And for right now, it doesn't matter like which direction your brush strokes go, because we're gonna come back and make it look more like the wood on the side. If y'all haven't been to the Pisgah covered bridge, you should go. It's really pretty every time of the year. When the trees are green, in the fall when they're all different colors, and in the winter when there's snow. It's so pretty. But just grab a bunch. And we're gonna throw us a little layer all through the side of our bridge. And when you're filling it in, make sure you go over that original line that we had on there. So make sure you go over that little line on the left and that little line over here on the right. And then just take it all the way up to your roof line. All right, so we got a good layer through the side. Let's go ahead and use those same 2 colors to kind of fill in this little part of our roof. And you just want to take it all the way out over that edge. And we're throwing us a little layer in just through the little triangle part, just through the little peak of our roof over here. All right, so we got that. Let's go ahead now. We can use those same 2 colors, that gray and dark brown, and throw it through our little walkway. And don't worry if anything got a little thick, because we can come back and thin it down. So this is just kind of getting a first layer on there. All right, so that's a pretty good layer on all those little parts, the side, our little peak, and that little part of the walkway. So now let's grab more of like a tan. So you don't have to wipe out your brush or anything, just grab some like sandy tan. And let's go ahead and throw a whole layer in through our roof. And whenever you're filling in the roof, just kind of go over that original line. So the sandy tan, and you just want to fill in your whole roof, and you want to take it all the way into that original line that we had. So if it's still wet, that's perfect. It'll kind of blend in. If it's not, it'll be dry and it'll be easy to cover up. But just keep grabbing the tan, and we're gonna fill in. You want a whole layer in there. That way when we come back and kind of give that shingle effect, it'll be easier just to have a layer of paint on there. 'Cause that way we can skip around and make it look good. Just fill in the whole roof. Okay, once we get a layer in through the roof, I would keep that same tan color on there, So same size brush, we're still using a pretty big brush, like a 6, 8, whichever you're comfortable with, and grab more of that same sandy tan, and we're gonna skip in just a smidge from our little support over here at the bottom left. So just barely skip in like 1/4 of an inch. And I'm gonna do a bumpy little line that kind of leans towards the bottom center. And so keep grabbing that sandy tan color, and then once you have this bumpy little line that leans towards the bottom center, then we're gonna just fill in all to the left of it. So you just kind of want to bump over that original line that you had too. So we're gonna fill in that whole little side. And then we're gonna skip to that middle column, and we're gonna barely skip over from the start of it. So just like, you know, 1/2 inch or so, and throw you a bumpy little line that kind of barely leans towards the bottom right. And then we're just gonna fill in that whole little part of it with some tan. And then once you have that, we're just gonna skip all the way over here to our little column on the right and just barely skip in, so like 1/2 inch again. And we're gonna do a bumpy line. This time it can kind of come straight down because of perspective. You don't have to have it quite as much. And then we're just gonna fill in that whole little section. And once again, don't worry if that dark brown's still a little bit wet and mixes in, because we're gonna come back and add it, make it look more rocky anyway. All right, good. So we got that going on. So then don't wipe out your brush, and now let's grab some like milk chocolate brown. So a good milk chocolate, nutmeg kind of brown, gingerbread, whatever kind of brown that's in that family that you have. And now we're gonna get the rest of each one of our columns filled in. So like a milk chocolate brown, and just make sure you go right over that bumpy line that we originally had. And don't worry about how these end, because it's gonna hit in the water. So it would be at different, you know, lengths down. So it's not gonna be a perfect flat edge. So be a little crazy with it. But we're just gonna keep using that milk chocolate and get a little layer. We got the first one, now we're getting the second one. And then keep that same color on your brush, and now we'll get like the rest of your column right here, and get this little part, like it's kind of the side of our road, because there's a little road that goes right up to it. It's like some little gravel, and this is kind of the little part holding the gravel and stuff in. So just kind of throw a layer through that just to get it on there. It's okay if it's streaky, because we'll come back and thicken it up. All right, so we got all of our little supports. Now the last thing we're gonna do on our bridge for, you know, the start is just to kind of wipe that off and grab dark brown with some black. So you want it pretty dark, so dark brown with some black, and we're gonna fill in our whole opening, because this would have a shadow, so it's gonna be your darkest part. So dark brown with black. And we're gonna fill in that whole little opening. All right, so we got a good little layer in through our opening, and then we'll skip back here to the back and add just a tiny little support, so a little diagonal, and kind of fill that in. All right, we've got us a pretty good start on our bridge. So let's wipe that one off and rinse that one out in the water to work on our sky. So I would go ahead and for our sky and use about the same size brush, so like a number 8's a good size. and rinse it out and dry it off. And let's grab, for our sky, you can do it, you know, whatever color, but I would use some light blues. So some light blues, maybe a little bit of seafoam, like a bluish green. And I'm just gonna skip over here to the left-hand side, and right above our bridge, I'm gonna load my brush with a lot of paint and do a bumpy little line. It's just kind of giving the impression of the tops of the trees. So I'm gonna start over here, load my brush with a lot of that lighter blue seafoam, and just do a bumpy line. So you want a bumpy little line. And then over here on the right hand side, I would just kind of bump you a little whoop, kind of like the left hand side of a rainbow, just right towards the edge there. And then once you have all this bumpy line, let's fill in our whole sky with those like light blues and seafoam. Whoop, throwing paint. But just grab a lot of that paint, and for right now, like, don't worry about which way your brush strokes go, because you can come back and thicken it up. And then we're just going to kind of fill it in all the way to our bridge. All right, so now let's go ahead and skip down to the very bottom. So you still want those same colors on your brush, the lighter blues. And we're going to start at the very bottom and kind of work your way up towards your supports. So start at the bottom with those same blue colors. And don't worry, when we throw the rocks and stuff, we'll throw some mud too, because everybody knows it's not this blue at the bridge. But just kind of start at the bottom. And we'll take it all the way up to our little rock supports and the little drive part. And don't worry that some of this brown kind of mixes in with it, because like I said, we're going to do that in a sec anyway. We're going to add some rocks and stuff to our water. So whenever you're doing it, take it all the way up to your supports, and it's fine that you get a little brown. And I would even take the water up a little bit higher over here on the left, just so you can see, you know, it's kind of sitting in there. All right, so we got a good little start to our water. We'll come back and thicken it up and add some streaks. And now for our little gravel road, our little path, we'll make that blue too. So just keep that blue. You could even grab a little bit of dark with it. And we're just gonna throw us a little layer right in through it. So don't worry if some of that brown gets kind of mixed in there with it. All right, so we have us a good layer through our sky, our water, and our little roadway. Okay, so now let's wipe that one off, but you don't have to rinse it out, just kind of wipe it off. And let's grab some really dark green. So whatever dark green you have, like a hunter green. And now we're gonna fill in all of our trees and between our columns, because that's gonna be like some trees and stuff behind there, because there's kind of a bank right there, a lot of greenery. So just grab a bunch of paint, and for right now we're just filling it all in, because once we have all this green on here, you should have your whole canvas covered. So don't skip any space. But I like to get like all my white parts first. So I like to throw a little bit through all the big sections before I go right up and get up next to everything. So now that we have a little bit, now we're gonna get all the way up next to everything with our dark green. And when you're getting your trees up here, make sure you kind of load your brush with a lot of paint and then just kind of bump into the edge of your blue. It's fine if your blue's still wet and kind of mixes in a little bit, because we're gonna come back and make our trees look more like trees anyway, so it's fine that this kind of bumps in there. But you wanna get all the rest of your canvas filled in with a layer of green, because there's gonna be a lot of trees and bushes. But this is what the bridge looks like most of the year. So in the spring and summer. And we just want to fill in the whole little area between our little columns. All right, so we got a good little layer of green on everything. So now we can wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. All right, so let's grab like a number 8. So grab like a number 8 size brush again and dry it off. And let's grab some more of that dark brown color, so like a mocha color. And now we're gonna add some streaks up and down through the side of our bridge. So just kind of skip around when you're streaking, because you don't want them all at the top or all at the bottom. And I think it looks good to kind of, sometimes you can add a little line at the bottom and then kind of streak up from it. But do like a few streaks together in a few places. But just make sure you're going kind of straight up and down, because these are we're given the appearance of that wood look. And let's go ahead while we have that on our brush. We'll throw a few streaks through like the little walkway, or the little, edge of your. And then keep that dark brown on there. And now we're gonna skip around, and all through our little supports and our roof, we're gonna do some little dashes. So just kind of skip around, and you're just doing little dashes about the size of a Tic Tac or a little bit bigger. Just do them real quick. Try not to think about it too much, because we're gonna dash with a bunch of different colors. We'll add a few to both sides, the lighter side, and I would even do more through your milk chocolate side. But just kind of throw some of those little, it's just kind of giving the impression of rocks is what we're going for. And we're gonna do the same thing through our roof. And these kind of go at the angle, so they have that same lean as our roof line. And just make sure you're not doing these like just through the middle. Make sure you have some near the top, kind of everywhere. And I think skipping around helps. That way you're not doing it like in a perfect pattern. It just helps you when you skip around to kind of avoid that perfect pattern look. And this is, we're just kind of going for like a shingle, impressionistic kind of shingle is what we're going for. So kind of keep skipping around, do a bunch of those. And then let's go ahead and add a little bit right here where we have the overhang of our little peak of our roof. We're gonna throw a dark brown line. It's just gonna parallel that outside line. So that same dark brown, And it's just gonna parallel that outside edge. So you could even throw some of that dark back through there. And then while we still have that brush, so we kind of added some dark to most everything, let's grab maybe some like caramel color brown with some lighter grays. It's like a light brown with some dark and light gray. And now we're gonna kind of streak back through the side of our bridge. So kind of everywhere where you didn't streak before, we're just kind of streaking this back in. It helps get a second layer on there. And it's given that appearance of like, you know, weathered wood, which is what we're going for. And depending on your light, like sometimes the bridge looks more gray and sometimes it has more brown. So that's why we're kind of using some of both. All right. And then while we have those same colors, let's go ahead and streak up here through this part. So the little part where you have the opening, because we'll come back and kind of divide it later. Let's just throw some of those streaks in there to get it thickened up. And we'll do the same thing through this little part in between those lines that we made. Just streak some of that in through there. And it's going to dry a little bit darker than it goes on. So we're going to give it a second and see how it dries. But that's a good little first layer. Now let's go ahead and grab some, so you don't have to wipe out your brush, just kind of grab some light, like off-white and tan. So that really light, like an off-white, creamy kind of color and some sandy tan. And now let's do some little shingles through our roof. So you still want to do these dashes that just kind of go with the same angle as your roof. And once again, make sure you skip around. I might switch out to a smaller brush just so I can get a better shingle. So I might wipe that one off, chunk it in the water, and let's grab more of like a size 4. So grab like a size 4 brush and dry it off and use those same colors, that off-white and tan. I just think that'll be a better size for doing our shingles and our rocks. And we're still like shingling through our roof. So make sure you don't throw these like just through the middle. You want to be like an all-over shingler. So just kind of throw these dashes. And the more dashes you put, the better it's going to look. So we're going to dash with this color and then we'll come back in a second and we'll dash with some grays and stuff. Because it's good, like it'll kind of all blend together and give that painterly look. All right, so we're still keeping the light colors on our brush, maybe more of that tan than off-white. And now just through the left-hand side of all of our little supports, we're gonna do the little streaks, just, you know, side to side. You can even have them kind of hanging the edge of the water through all of your little supports. And we'll do the same thing over here through this last little section we have. And then I would even use a little bit of that tan and throw just a few through your little edge of your walkway over here, edge of your road. All right, so we got that. Now let's go ahead and grab like that same tan, but I would even grab like a little dark gray with it. So some sandy tan and some dark gray. And now we're gonna add our little support beams on our bridge. So you want these to go just a little bit left of each one of your little rock supports. So some tan and some dark gray together. And let's start back here at the back. It's going to be our smallest one because of perspective. So we're just going to add a little diagonal, and then we'll just kind of thicken it up just a little bit. And then once you get that, we'll skip to that middle one, and let's add a diagonal. This one can be just a little bit taller, and then we'll just kind of thicken that up. And then we'll do the same thing through that last one. This one can even be a little bit taller than the other ones. Just kind of trying to make sure they have like similar angles going on here. All right, so we got our little supports. So now let's grab some dark gray. So you don't have to wipe out your brush or anything. Just grab some dark gray. And now we're gonna add some more dark gray shingles. So I'll go ahead and do those. Just still like we did before. Just try not to think about it too much. Just kind of skip around because it's gonna look really good if some of them blend together. So you don't wanna try to like evenly space them or anything. Just kind of go for it. The more shingles you do, the better it's gonna look. All right, so we got, that's looking pretty good and shingly. Now keep that dark gray on your brush, and now we're gonna skip down here to our little supports at the bottom, and we're gonna throw some dark gray shingles through both sides, the left and the right of these little supports. So skip around and throw you some dark gray. You can even have some that kind of go into the edgier water, just a little. And whenever you're doing these, I got a little green in there, that's okay. We'll add a little rock over it in a second. Make sure your rocks are hanging over the edge because you don't want it to have that perfect line. We want to kind of give it that rocky look. So make sure you take it all the way to the edge and even have a few that hang over. And then we'll do the same thing over here. So throw a few. And then you can even throw a few streaks. All right, so we have a good little start. While we have this size brush, let's go ahead. I think the only part where we need like some more rocks is just through the right-hand side of our supports. So I'm gonna grab some more of that like milk chocolate and caramel color, and I'm just gonna go back in and throw some of those little dashes side to side. It's just gonna help blend, make it look a little bit more rocky. And anywhere where you like didn't have a rock, just kind of throw one. And we'll do the same thing through this little section over here at the right. Then we can always, if it dries too dark, we can come back and throw a few more rocks on there. But I think that's a pretty good start. So we'll still use that same size brush, just like a number 4, just kind of wipe it off a little bit and grab some of that dark brown and black together, because you want like a really dark brown, almost black. And right underneath, like right where our roof hits the side of our bridge, we're gonna throw just a little bit of this, just because that's where the shadow would be. So we're gonna throw just a little bit of a dark line, because it's gonna have a shadow right underneath our roof. And while you have that dark color on your brush, you can go ahead and kind of thicken up your little dark support that we threw on there at the beginning. And you can add a little bit of dark at the very bottom of your bridge, because there would be a little bit of a shadow there too. Whenever you're doing this, just kind of hit it one time. You don't want to go over it a bunch. So just kind of hit it just once and don't really worry about it too much. Then I would add just a few, kind of barely, more of that dark brown kind of by itself, but just add just a few dark streaks through the side of your bridge. It's good if that other paint's still a little bit wet. That way it can kind of blend in a little bit, but kind of skip around. And you want just a few dark streaks. But make sure you don't throw them like just through the middle. Have some that come up from the bottom, some that come down from the top. And then while we have this color, let's go ahead and thicken up the inside of our bridge. So where that shadow is going to be, it's going to be darker. Because of the cover on the bridge, it's going to make this little part pretty dark. So you want to use that same dark brown and black and just kind of add you another layer there. All right, so we got that darkened up. Now, while we have a dark color, let's go ahead and add us a little line right here from where we have this overhang to that top corner of our shingled roof. And this is when you can go over those other little lines if you need to, if they didn't get dark enough for you. You can add a little bit right here, just because there'd be a little bit of a shadow there too. All right, so we got a good start to that. Keep that dark brown and black on your brush. And now through our little supports, we're gonna throw some lines that go straight left to right. So you wanna make sure these don't angle. You wanna go, horizontal with your line. So just resist the urge to let them lean. We wanna throw some little lines, barely skip down, and you're just gonna section it off and just throw your horizontal line. And then we can throw a little bit of dark right underneath, because there'd be a shadow underneath each support. So throw just a little bit of that dark underneath each support. So the same thing over here. We're just gonna throw some quick little horizontal lines and then a little bit of dark underneath there. And then once we have that, let's go ahead and wipe it off and chunk that one in the water. And let's grab like a number 6 size brush. So grab like a number 6 and dry it off. And we're gonna grab some of the, like a light chartreusey, limey, slimy green with some dark green. So you want a really light green, citrusy kind of green with the dark green. And just load your brush with a lot of paint. So you want to have a bunch of paint on your brush, and then we're just going to kind of dab with the side of the brush. And we're going to do this, like I wouldn't do like, kind of don't skip around or it's going to look like polka dots. I would kind of keep these in clusters. So I'm going to like do a little cluster up here. Sometimes it helps me to add a straight line like at the top of the roof and then just kind of bump off of that, because you can always come back and, bump with some dark too. So I'm going to throw some light right there. I could skip over here, throw a little bit of a patch of light right there. Throw some lights through the tops of these trees in a few places. And then we'll do the same thing like over here to the left of our bridge. I'm going to kind of fill it in a little bit with those two greens together. And then I can just kind of bump over it. But just so we have some patches. Because I'm getting all my lights on there, kind of over our dark, and then we can bump back in with some dark and even some blue for the sky kind of peeking through. So I'm gonna bump a little bit in between our little supports. Okay, so that's a pretty good start to our trees and our greenery. Pretty good with the light. So now let's grab some of that dark green and we're just gonna bump back in to places that we didn't hit with that light. So kind of just bump back in with a really dark green. Same brush, load your brush with a lot of paint. And kind of hit it with the side of your brush. So don't stab it. Even if you're having a bad day, kind of hit it with the side of the brush. And the more paint you have on there, the easier it is. So like make sure you have, you know, pretty much paint, so you'll have to keep grabbing it and then just be really light with it. The same thing down here. Let's add a little bit of that dark. All right, so that's a pretty good start to our trees for right now. So let's wipe that one off, chunk it in the water, and let's grab a little bit bigger brush. So let's switch to like a little bit bigger brush, like a size 8, and dry it off. And now let's grab some more of those blues we were using before. So some light blues and some sea foams. And let's go ahead, let's throw a little bit more through our sky, just the big areas. So don't get right up next to your trees, but through the sky. And just leave a little bit of space between your sky and your trees. And it's all right if it's a little streaky because the sky's not going to be, you know, all perfect. But I would just get like the big parts of the sky just to get it thickened up. And then keep those same blues on your brush, and we're just going to throw another layer in through our water down here. Just to kind of thicken it up. And then keep those same blues, and let's grab a little bit of like that turquoise blue with it and throw you another little bit through our roadway. Because that's like gravel right there, so it's gonna have a little bit of a blue tint to it. And now, since our water is not gonna look this blue, let's grab a little bit, you don't even have to wipe out your brush, just grab some of that like sandy tan color. And let's streak just a little bit of that in with the blue. And whenever you're streaking, make sure you take some streaks like all the way to the bottom. That way it's not like blue at the bottom and then you jumped up. So make sure you kind of streak everywhere. All right, so we got that looking a little bit more natural, because whenever you throw that tan kind of color in there with the blues, it's gonna look like, you know, there's rocks and stuff underneath the water. That's kind of the impression we're given. And you just wanna make sure the bottom of all of your little supports are a little bumpy. Just kind of bump your brush into that bottom edge. You just wanna make sure it's not like a perfect line. So kind of bump it in to the edge of all of those. And then we're gonna kind of streak up our little driveway a little bit. See that same tan, and you can even grab up a little gray or something, but just kind of streak that in. Because your roadway wouldn't be, you know, a perfect blue either. It's gonna have some shadows and some dust. So just kind of streak some of that in to kind of give more of the impression of gravel. And then we'll wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And we'll just do a few more things. So let's grab like a number 4 size brush and dry it off. And we'll grab some more of our sky colors, so like some lighter blues. And now just towards the top edge of a few of our trees, we're gonna bump in there with a few little blue little bumps. And that's just gonna kind of give the impression that like the sky's kind of peeking through. So it's fine that the green's kind of mixing in there with it. And you don't want to do this all over because then that'll look like polka dots. So kind of just in a few places, like near the edge of your trees, a good spot. So over here on the right, kind of near the edge of both of those. And you could do the same thing. Just to it kind of messes it up and makes it look a little bit more natural and less perfect. We're just kind of giving the impression, because you would be able to see some of that light poking through your leaves in a few places. It wouldn't be solid. Okay, so that's a good start to our blue poking through. So then just kind of wipe off your extra. So still use that same size brush, just kind of wipe it off. And now we're gonna grab some of those 2 greens together. And the bridge really has a lot of windows, but they're up really high in the bridge. So being that we have a shadow and an overhang right here, we don't really see it in this perspective, but let's throw one on the inside because you would probably see one up high. So we're just gonna skip in to our little shadow and we're gonna skip in from the edge just like 1/4 of an inch and throw a little line that goes straight down for just like 1/4 of an inch. And then we'll throw a little line kind of straight over to the left from it. And we're just gonna fill in that little tiny bit with that green. And I'll probably thicken up this too just to add some streaks so it won't be so perfect. But we have kind of the impression of a window there. And then let's grab a little bit bigger brush. So a number 6 or number 8 and dry it off. And let's use that dark brown again with some black. And let's just throw a few streaks just up and down. Just kind of streaky through that opening. Just so it won't be too perfect. And then if you want to, if this looks a little too perfect up here, which mine's kind of streaky, but if yours is a little painted in solid, you could add you a few streaks with like the lighter grays and brown, just so it won't be painted in there too solid. And if you needed to skinny up any of those dark lines that we threw on there. And then just kind of wipe that one off and let's just hit our little supports one more time. So you want to grab that like same number 6 or 8 size brush, just kind of wipe it off and grab some tan and like dark gray together. Tan, off-white, dark gray. And then kind of through each one of those little sections in between our lines, we'll just put a little bit of paint. It's just going to kind of thicken it up and make it look a little bit better. All right, that's kind of, we have the supports. While you have those same colors that we thickened up the supports with, let's just add a few little dashes at the bottom of our supports, kind of going into the water. So that's going to kind of be the rocks that you can see through the water. Just a few of those quick little dashes. And it's fine if your blue's still a little wet, that'll be even better because they'll kind of blend in a little bit better. and then just wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And I would grab a tiny brush again. It's like a number 1, so a really little one, and dry it off and grab whatever color. So I'm probably gonna grab like a green and just sign. And then we have the Pisgah covered bridge. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Be sure to check us out. We're on Cox Street in Asheboro. And be sure to check out our website, www.thepreppypossum.com.